NFL Week 6 is on deck. We're going to cover all those primetime games. Check in with VR for the Steam report. Of course, the Deli has been absolutely red hot, so Marco better be cooking up some paninis for me. We got some barking dogs for you guys, as well as best bets coming right up. Kelly Stewart here, joined by Yanni the Greek, Marco D'Angelo, and we're going to get right into NFL Week 6 for you guys, starting with Thursday Night Football. Marco D'Angelo, you're going to be up first here. Eagles, 7.5-point favorites at the Giants, 41.5, big-time rivalry game, except for it's not. Our producer Dan just casually reminded all of us how the Eagles have dominated the Giants for a better part of 2 decades, which kind of has me thinking, do I just take the easy way out and tease the Eagles here?
I can't argue with that, Kelly. Get the Eagles down to just win the game. That's probably going to be on a few of my tickets as well this week. But when we break this game down, let's start with the fact that last week we cashed going against both of these two teams. And why? Well, because they were both in what I felt bad situations. You had the Eagles coming off, another win, a close win the week before, and they had Denver coming to town. Denver, a good defensive team, getting points, and you had the Eagles with this game on deck, a division rivalry on a short week. I just thought it was a horrible spot for the Eagles, and they went down. Now, losing last week may just be the best thing that could have happened to this team because, as we pointed out last week, their 4 wins had come by just a grand total of 20 points. So I'm hoping that loss, is the wake-up call for this team. We also went against the Giants. All of us went against the Giants last week. We were all in unison going with the Saints because the Giants were coming off their first win with Jackson Dart the week before and then had to travel down to New Orleans to play the Saints, who were winless, and then had this game on deck. It was just a horrible spot for them, and New Orleans came through for us. Now, playing on a short week, you've got to figure that the advantage goes to Philadelphia. Even though they're on the road, it's a short trip to go to play the Giants. But I'm looking at it from the aspect of the 2 starting quarterbacks. You've got to get a rookie quarterback that's only made 3 starts prepared for a tough game in 3 days to play on Thursday night, as opposed to a veteran quarterback like Jalen Hurts. And for the love of God, will you please run the football, Philadelphia? I don't care if you're struggling running the football. You got to have some balance. 11 times you ran the football last week. And I might add, you had Barkley in your backfield, all right? And you also had a double-digit lead. How you only ran the ball 11 times is beyond me. You got to balance the offense to keep the defenses honest. And I think that they will have success in this game against the Giants defense. We're going to go ahead, take Philadelphia. I'll lay the points. I'm calling for Philadelphia to get the win in the cover. But I'll be honest with you, I think the safer bet in this play is to use Philadelphia on a 6-point teaser. You don't want to use a 6.5 or 7 and pay even more juice. You want to get this at that 125. Shop around the houses that you can find the 125 or better. There are some out there. There is one here in Vegas, and that's where I put all of my teasers. Go ahead and take Philly to cover, but I'm going to have more teasers in this game, Kelly.
All right, Marco, now the comment section is going to ask where that casino is in Vegas. That is unbeknownst to me. Who has minus 125 teasers still in Vegas?
This is shocking that it's them. It's Caesars that has 125.
Wow.
And the situation, if you remember, VR will remember a few years ago in the playoffs, there was the first weekend of the playoffs. Every teaser covered. No matter if you took
side and total.
It matters.
You're not supposed to tease totals.
All right. Okay. And Caesars panicked. And the next week, they didn't take teasers the next week of the playoffs when all of the lines were 3, which that's when you want people to to play teasers. Okay. So they did everything ass backwards back then. And now they're the only one that has the 125 here in town.
All right, if we could only bet their VR, we would go use their teasers. That's okay. Yeah. We got a guy. We got a guy. That's all that matters. You should also get a guy. Just ask. Never hurts. Sunday Night Football, Lions plus 2.5 at the Chiefs. Total 52.5. Woo! Is this the fishy line of the week? But not so fast. Fading teams off a big win has been historically favorable betting in the NFL, right? But that is not the case for Dan Campbell. From the Gold Sheet, following a win by at least 7 points or more, Detroit has gone 21-5 against the spread in the next game. Dan Campbell, as an underdog, 11-2. Oh, listen, I want to take the Lions so bad here, but I will say this. Their defense is a little banged up, and their Chiefs offense is starting to ramp up kind of after that slow start. So with a higher total, this is not a traditional teaser play, but I'm looking at putting the Lions in teasers. I do think this is going to be a higher scoring game. Would not shock me to see both teams end up in the 30s here. 2 high scoring offenses, banged up defense. Just keep in mind, the Lions, not that traditional square dog here, 21-5 against the spread the next game. We'll see if maybe I don't put them in a couple contest plays. VR, let's talk Monday Night Football. We got a double header. Bills are a 3.5 point favorite at the Falcons, total 47.5.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, this isn't a knock on Buffalo, but I think it's a good spot to look to Atlanta as a decent home dog here on Monday night. Got to remember, this is only Buffalo's second road game. They played 4 or 5 games at home. So now they're traveling on the road, and they're playing a really tough team in the Atlanta Falcons. They do a lot of things well. They got an excellent defense. They run the football, and they're slowly and surely getting Penix up to speed. And what I like is I talk about passing success rate all the time. And if you look right now, he's slowly but surely climbing those ranks. Where he sits right now, Penix has a 49.2 passing success rate. And when you compare that to Josh Allen, who's got a 51.9, it shows you just how impressive Penix has been so far for Atlanta. With that said, if they're able to run the football and control the clock, which is where their strength is, and coupled with the weakness for Buffalo, that run defense, I think Atlanta's going to be in this game from start to finish and have a chance to actually win, let alone cover. I like Atlanta having a bye coming into this week, so they've had extra time to prepare. I like the fact they haven't had a Monday night game in Atlanta for a number of years, so this is going to be a hostile environment, hyped up for Monday night. They can't afford to fall behind. They're going to want to have that crowd in there. So look for them to try to control the football. And more importantly, we finally have seen some cracks in Buffalo as far as turnovers. If you remember coming into the season, we touched on Buffalo was plus 24 in turnovers last season, number 1 in all the NFL. The number 2 team had only 16. So 40% less than what Buffalo did. And where they really did best was if you look at their fumbles, they captured 16 fumbles and only lost 2. So 18 times the ball hit the ground and they recovered 16 of those. It's 50-50 when that ball hits the ground more times than not. So it shows you just how lucky they got. That's not going to continue forever. I think we're starting to see that. We could force some more turnovers. Atlanta may be that money line play, but at 4, I like the Falcons.
Wow. Falcons to shock the world in the first Monday night game. Marco, do you think the Bears can shock the world? Plus 3.5. I know they're a little underdog on the road at the Commanders, 50.5. Daniels looked pretty good in his return there last week versus the Chargers after they got down early, but now they're back at home. Talk to me about this Bears team off a bye.
Yeah, Kelly, and normally off of a bye, I don't like taking a team that went into the bye on a good note. And the Bears won 2 in a row heading into the bye. Generally, that's a momentum stopper. But the more I thought about it, I actually think that this was the perfect time for the Bears to get that early bye. Think about it. They played 4 games. They improved in the last 2 games. Remember, Caleb Williams, second year in the NFL. A lot of times we see quarterbacks have a regression in the second year. Throw in the fact that he had to deal with a new offense to run this year. Ben Johnson takes over, comes in from the Detroit Lions as the offensive coordinator to be the head coach. So now you had a learning curve for him. You've had a 4-week sample size. They could take that 2 weeks to prepare, look at the film, see what Caleb Williams did well, what he was comfortable with, what plays didn't work in the playbook, tweak those or throw them out and use the cream of the crop and tweak those plays. I think you're going to see the best offensive performance of the season from the Bears coming out of that bye week with the extra week to prepare. Also, I look at this one and I see Washington. They're in a tough scheduling spot. Okay, they came out of their bye week, so they were focused. They went cross country to play the Chargers in LA. Now, that was an impressive win, like the Washington in that game. But let's not forget, you had the Chargers who were zigzagging all across the country in the first couple of weeks of the season. Remember all of the road games that they had to start the season, plus 3 tough divisional games, plus all of the injuries that they had. They were ripe for the picking, and Washington took advantage of it. Now you got Washington coming back, returning home from the West Coast, but look at who they play next. It's the Dallas Cowboys, division rival. This is what, I could have used this one in a sandwich spot as well. And for the last factor, do you think the Bears remember last year's game against Washington? If you don't, I'll remind you. Washington was losing until the final play of the game. Daniels hits a Hail Mary in the end zone for the win when the Chicago defender that should have been covering the guy that caught the ball in the end zone was in the corner of the end zone taunting the crowd, thinking they had the game won already. Do you remember that one? Yeah, and that was the start of the Bears season spiraling out of control. Yeah, they got this one circled. Let's go ahead, take Chicago in this one. In the Washington pass defense, they've allowed 261 yards or more in 3 of their last 4 games. Look for a high-scoring game. I'll go ahead and take the Bears plus the points on Monday night.
Oh, boy. Yeah, Marco, I think a lot of us remember that game. That was a wild one. VR, let's get into what you've got over at wagertalk.com this weekend before we get into the steam room.
Well, already up is my college football package with 2 4% in there. And of course, we're going to have a lot more between now and Saturday. I've won every week so far in college football. From week 0 through week 6, we've turned a profit. And I feel confident that's only going to continue, already up over 110 units. NFL regular season has been fire as well after not a good preseason. And this Sunday, firing a 5% in the NFL. I haven't had a 5% in the NFL. I don't even know if I've had one yet this season, but we do have a position that warrants that. So head on over to Wager Talk. We'll have the NFL package, college football package, UFC package as well. And of course, Major League Baseball playoffs each and every night. So a great time to get on board. And of course, the steam room Sunday heading into the NFL 1 p.m. kickoffs.
All right, let's hear what you've got from Sharp Action for NFL Week 6.
All right, let's look at some of the hits that had the moves that had follow through. Because again, we talk about the look ahead lines all the time, and the limits are low. But it gives us an idea whether after the rest of the books open up, if the groups continue to follow through and bet that side, or whether it was just taking advantage of a look ahead. Start off with the Indianapolis Colts. Their look ahead was 3 minus 125, went to 5, 5.5. That got bet up to where it sits at 6.5 right now. The Rams, minus 6.5. -7. Now you're looking at 7.5 against Baltimore. So half-point increments. Seems like Ram money continuing to come in. Miami plus 5.5 and plus 5 against the Chargers. That's opposite the public. Seeing a lot of Charger money already from the recreational accounts. Tampa Bay over San Francisco, minus 1.5, 2 and 2.5, but did see some San Francisco plus 3 in a couple sharp accounts, which tells you just how tight these NFL lines, and with 3 being such a key number, that's not surprising. Look at Green Bay, minus 13.5, minus 14, laying 2 touchdowns there. And finally, Monday Night Football, I already talked about them, but the Atlanta Falcons at that look ahead at plus 5, they took the 4.5. That's why you're looking at plus 4 right now. So still early in the week, but those are some of the bigger one-sided, bigger steam moves on some of those NFL sides for Sunday.
All right, let's get into these barking dogs. Marco D'Angelo is going to be up first. This is an interesting one. We've got a new quarterback in Cleveland. Well, I guess he played last week, Dylan Gabriel, but Joe Flacco is no longer his backup, which I think it means Shedeur Sanders would be if he goes out. But you like the Browns plus 5.5.
No, I think actually when they did the depth chart, it's Dylan Gabriel is the starter. Player to be named later is the backup, and then Sanders is third on the depth chart. But you got to love the AFC North. My Pittsburgh Steelers had last week off. They gained a half a game on the entire division by not playing. And then you have, this is the same division that one team trades away their starting quarterback to another team in the division, and that team thinks that got them, that it was a good deal. God bless America that we live in. But from a betting standpoint here, I am going to go ahead and take Cleveland. I mentioned in the last game when we talked about bye weeks that I don't like teams that go into a bye week on a good note. And the Pittsburgh Steelers went into the bye week winning their last 2 games. They went across the pond and played in Ireland, beat Minnesota, and now you've had 2 weeks off. It was a little bit of a momentum stopper. Now, it is an advantage rest-wise. You've had 2 weeks where Cleveland went across the pond and has to come back across the pond, not getting a bye week. Normally, the teams that play overseas gets the bye week the following week. But this is a division game. And I'm looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers, and even though they're 3-1, and I cashed with them against Minnesota, they're still not a good football team. Don't be misread by the record. This team, the offensive line play is bad. And Aaron Rodgers is not a mobile quarterback anymore. And Myles Garrett and company are going to put pressure on him the entire time in this game. He's going to find out what the rivalry is between Pittsburgh and Cleveland when Myles Garrett comes calling. I always tell you, give me points with the better defense. Well, that better defense is clearly Cleveland at this stage of the season. Also, I'm going to look at the fact in this one, you talk about Dylan Gabriel. Yeah, it was his first game last week. He didn't set the world on fire, but he also had a clean game. He didn't lose the game for them. They were in that game right till the end. I think second start, he's going to be better. Got the nerves out, last week. If he had butterflies, whatever, expect a better game from him, taking all of the first string snaps for a second week in a row. And he doesn't have to look over his shoulder because it's not, the old man Joe Flacco. It's Shedeur Sanders, and I don't see him coming in anytime soon. So let's go ahead, take Cleveland in this one, plus the points. In a perfect world, for me, Pittsburgh wins 21-20, but it's not a perfect world. I'm calling Cleveland 20-17.
Oh boy, the Steelers fan is calling for another Steelers loss. VR, you and I were in agreement on this one. I was going to use it as my best bet, but I wanted to add one more play into the rotation. Tell me why you like the Panthers as your barking dog this week.
Yeah, and this is one I immediately jumped on and sent out to subscribers. I thought this Dallas team is a little bit overvalued right now, and I thought the overreaction to the offensive line injuries with Carolina was overpriced in this betting line because Dallas just doesn't have the pass rush and that the defense to do all that much and take advantage of that. Like, that's their weakness. So I don't think Carolina is going to be at as big of a disadvantage as if they were going up, a stellar front four. Also, I think they're going to have some success running the football against Dallas, which will take pressure off of Bryce Young, whose passing efficiency also continues to climb. And he's almost right at that NFL average. And I know Prescott seems like he's having a stellar year, had a couple big games, but he's barely right above that NFL average as far as passing success rate goes. And why I like Carolina most is because when you look at the weakness of Dallas, I'm going to keep it this simple. It's their defense. They're the 32nd most efficient defense in all of the NFL. If you're getting points like Carolina's getting, that back door is going to stay open that entire game. This is the defense that you could march up and down the field on and score some points. Having them playing this game at home, I just think they're live. They should be able to keep it even in the number. If not, win this game on the money line. Just got to slow down that offense of the Cowboys, which again is top 5 in efficiency, going to give them their due. But I think that'll start to drop off as the season progresses. They've had like the 20th, 22nd toughest schedule. So easy strength of schedule so far. Again, I think Dallas is phony, and I'll take the points with Carolina. Give me the 3.5 at home dog.
I'm not sure if New England is phony, but I'm going to bet against them this week. I'm not sure how legit they are. Congratulations to them and that nice win over Buffalo. But I think this is kind of one of those weird letdown spots. I like Coach Vrabel, but 3.5 points with a team who's been competitive in all 5 games except for at Seattle. Remember, they had a shot to beat Arizona there at home. They had a shot to beat San Francisco there at home. And maybe they didn't have a shot to beat Buffalo, but I can promise you, Buffalo backers in Survivor were sweating late into that game. And then they just got a nice win there at home once again over the New York Giants last week. They took early money, and rightfully so. That second half was all the Saints. This is a Saints team that I think is improving week by week. They finally get the monkey of that loss off their back. And now New England goes on the road once again, just 2-8 in the NFC. Now, one could maybe argue that was towards the end of Bill Belichick's career and they just stopped playing well without Tom Brady. But I think Spencer Rattler having that first career win, snapping that 8-game losing streak, and then giving head coach Kellen Moore his first win kind of propels them into this week. Remember, they had 5 turnovers. This is defense comes to play. You can tell the Saints team is hungry. I think we see a less than stellar performance by the Pats. So give me the 3.5 here with the Saints. I think they can win this game at home. Marco D'Angelo's Deli has been absolutely piping hot. Hopefully you get the soup sandwich special that he offers us every single week. And that is that you can watch the extended version of the Deli either on the Mega Show or on the Wager Talk YouTube channel. Of course, if you're an insider, you get it first. wt.buzz/insiders to join. Marco, the Deli, it's been cooking. 16-9 on the season. Who do we have for NFL Week 6?
Yum.
Yeah, Kelly, this is a perfect spot when you talk about a sandwich situation. We're going to look at Seattle. They're going to be playing Jacksonville, and you got Jacksonville coming off back-to-back games in which they went to San Francisco 2 weeks ago, beat the 49ers. Now, granted, the 49ers were banged up, but still, it's the 49ers on the road. You got the win. Then they came home. We all saw the Monday night game. What a game. Probably one of the best Monday night games we'll see all season. And they got the win over the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, beating Kansas City is a big deal by itself. But given the fashion in which they won the game, when after giving up the go-ahead touchdown late, you had Trevor Lawrence take them down the field and score the winning touchdown. And on the craziest play, gets his foot stepped on, falls down. They have no timeouts. If he gets tackled behind the line of scrimmage, they could have trouble getting the next play off without the clock running out. And instead, he gets up. I thought he was just going to throw it out of bounds to stop the clock. No, he finds a way to get into the end zone on a broken play to win the game. And that game was on Monday Night Football at home. How often is Jacksonville on Monday Night Football, period, let alone have a home game? Talk about a letdown spot. You're coming off of all of that, those 2 games the previous weeks, and you're on such a high off the Monday night. It's a short week. And oh, by the way, next week, you travel across the pond. You go to London to play the Rams. This is an absolutely horrible spot for them to be playing Seattle. Seattle's coming off a tough loss of their own last week against the comeback kids, a.k.a. Tampa Bay. If you haven't watched Tampa Bay play this year, they are actually a fun team to watch with Baker Mayfield. They fall behind every week and they find a way to win it. And Seattle was their latest victim. Tampa Bay has won 4 or 5 coming from behind this year. Defensively, Seattle has allowed only one opponent to top 20 points this season. This is just, you add in the scheduling, the short week, who they've played, that monumental Monday night game, going to London next week, in Seattle coming off a tough loss at home last week with a bad taste in their mouth. To me, this all adds up to taking Seattle. And the last thing I'll say about Jacksonville, I'll give you another, Marco ism that I like to look at. That was a statement game for Jacksonville, okay? They were 3-1, but nobody was really giving them any credit for the wins that they had. Now they're 4-1, and they beat Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes. As I like to say, that was their legitimizer. Now people believe in them. And as soon as people actually start talking about a team, that's when I want to go against them. Let's go ahead and take Seattle in this one. And you know what? I have a feeling, Kelly, +1.5, going to see them on some teasers as well.
Yes, we are going to see them on some teasers. I've already done it. I broke VR's rule. Don't tell them, okay, guys?
Don't do it.
The teasers have done really well outside of last week. And a team named the Ravens. Yeah. We're getting into best bets right now. VR, what are we doing here?
Yes. I don't care. Listen, I will go down fighting that I am comfortable making this bet. And I feel extremely confident, Kel, that I'm so getting the best of it. This is such an overreaction to Baltimore. Let me just take you back real quickly. They lose in the playoffs as 1-point favorites. 1-point favorites on the road at Buffalo. They lose that game by a point or 2. They come back the following year. They're still 1-point favorites on the road at Buffalo. They lose that game in the most improbable fashion, okay? They come back the following week as 13-point favorites because on paper they were the best team in the NFL. And what do? They cover. They win by 20+ against Cleveland. So right then and there, they're considered the best team in the NFL. That was not all that long ago, okay? Since then, they played Detroit. They were 4.5-point favorites against the best team in the NFL right now, Detroit. 4.5 against Detroit. Very same place, Baltimore. September 22nd, just a few weeks back. They lose that game. Then they go to Kansas City, one of the toughest places to play anyway. They lose that game and they get blown out by Houston. Why? Because Rush throws 3 interceptions. Now, Rush had a 58 QBR. If anybody's going to progress towards the mean, it's this kid. Because when you look at his career, it's a lot better than that. We have a couple seasons, a handful of games, and his quarterback rating historically has been a lot higher than 60. So I expect him to only improve. One of the best home field advantages in all of the NFL is still Baltimore. And if anything, this is a proud franchise, a proud team that is a 7.5-point dog to the LA Rams. Listen, I get it. Stafford's playing well. Rams are looking good. They're 3-2. above 500, coming off what? A loss, so expecting them to bounce back. It was a tough loss to San Francisco. I don't see it. I like Baltimore here. We have another team traveling from the West Coast to the East Coast, giving way too many points, Kel. I think Rush improves off of that performance. I think Baltimore has some pride, and I think power rating-wise, this is foolish, because when I look at the Rams, offensively, they're barely a top 15 team. The weakness for Baltimore has been their defense, but fortunately, they're not playing the most stellar of offenses this week. I'm telling you that. Take the 7.5. It's a gift. Sprinkle the money line on Baltimore as well. Don't be surprised if they get the win and move to 2-4.
All right. That is certainly a brave pick. I have a feeling the whole world is going to tease the Rams. So good luck for those that have better stomach than I do. I can't back the Ravens a second week in a row. Marco, a team that you want to back here, and I'm not against it, but talk to me about London and why we're taking the under. But before you do, 7 days of picks for $77, just $11 a day. What do you have to promote now over at wagertalk.com?
Kelly, 7 days, all access right now. Every sport is going on but one. And that one that's not going on will start next week. That's the NBA. Take advantage of that 7-day all access. You'll get every play. It includes all 5% plays. 5% plays sell for $35 by themselves. You're going to pick up 7 days for $77. It's the best way to go. You'll never miss a play. And when you're an all access client, if your handicapper puts a play in, say on Tuesday for Sunday, you get an email notification immediately about the play, so you get the best of the number as well. It's the best way to go. Don't wait till game day. Sign up for a 7-day all access. And we've got a big weekend planned as well. We are number 2 in money won over the last 2 years combined in college and pro football. So be sure to check myself out and all of the great handicappers at Wager Talk. Kelly, we're going to head over to London. Another one of these early games. I hate getting up at 6:30 to watch football on a Sunday morning, but we've got Denver and the Jets. And when you look at this one, Denver is coming off back-to-back wins where the Jets, well, they can't get out of their own way. 0-5, and the Jets' defense has been absolutely non-existent. Every opponent has scored 27 or more points against them. So with that said, the knee-jerk reaction would be either take Denver and lay the points or take the over. But I'm not doing either, and here's why. This is a tough scheduling spot for Denver, because this is going to be their 4th road game in 5 weeks. And you can't get a longer road trip than heading across the pond to go play in London. The one thing that Denver has going for them, and it's been a consistent all year, has been they've got a strong defense. And as you know, the saying goes, defense is travel. Well, I'm looking for that defense to travel to London and be the best unit on the field on Sunday. And you look at the Jets, I think Denver's going to exploit the fact that the Jets have an inability to stop the run. And by running the football, Denver will shorten the game, get in and get out, which they want to do. Also, if you're running the football effectively, that gives you better down and distances when you do have to pass the football, and they can protect Bo Nix. Bo Nix has had an up and down season. There's times that he looks like a second-year quarterback in the NFL, and there's other times that he shows some of the brilliance that he flashed last year as a rookie. But he has been inconsistent, and they want to minimize the mistakes. Well, when you're running the football effectively, that's the best way to minimize mistakes. With that said, I look for this to be a quick game and lots of runs by Denver, and especially when they get a lead on the Jets, and that's going to lead to an under. My projected score in this one is Denver 20-13, which would cover the point spread if you want to go that route, but I am looking at the unders. I think this one goes well under the 43.5.
I owe you guys an apology because I was picking disgusting dogs this week in the NFL regardless. I went back and forth between Miami and this play and who I was going to use for barking dogs. And look, it's gross. bottom line, taking the Titans off that crazy win is not exactly the spot most of you want to do. Oh, Kelly, the miraculous upset. What would the line have been if that touchdown would have scored and Arizona went up 3 scores? No, the line would have been the same. The line is the same as it was in July when our friends over at the Superbook put out these lines. Vegas -4. There's literally nothing different except for we're betting against the Raiders again. Do you think you can trust this team as a favorite? They have no home field advantage. Geno Smith has 9 interceptions on the season, and this is the worst start in Pete Carroll's career. I gave you guys the Colts last week, and everybody in the comment section told me how square I was. Call me square again for taking the 4.5 here with the Titans, but I think the Titans can take that momentum and turn it into 2 wins. Give me the Titans plus 4.5 for my best bet, NFL Week 6. Let's get that recap graphic up for everybody. From VR and Marco, and of course myself, we wish you guys a profitable NFL Week 6. And if you are looking for the college football edition of Bet On, it's right here. And of course, the mega show we keep talking about. If you're in it for the long haul, you don't want to miss a single minute of Bet On It, we got you covered.
1.
Let's talk about the Green Bay Packers on Stopwatch today, or Stockwatch today. It's Stopwatch. It's a Stockwatch. It's just a tip, whatever you want to call it. That being said, I'm buying the Green Bay Packers right now. I'd rather go a week early than a week late, and I know they're big favorites against Cincy this week, and I'm not convinced they're going to cover that number. That said, over the course of the next 5 games, I think there's money to be made with Green Bay. Let's talk about why. All right. Right now, the Packers, middle of the pack offensively. And yards per play, anywhere from 5.2 to 5.7 is in the league average. Green Bay's 5.6. They're about a league average yards per play. 3.8 yards per rush below league average. They are top 5 in yards per pass attempt. Defense, number 2 in the NFL. This is coming off a 40-point game they gave up to Dallas. And Jeff Hafley's defense ranked 2nd in the league. They're only allowing 4.5 yards per play against, 3.6 yards per rush. That's number 5 in the league. 5.2 yards per play against the pass, or 5.2 yards per pass attempt. So that's number 2 in the NFL. This defense has been elite, and the offense has been league average so far. I think the defense will remain elite, and I think the offense is only going to get better. Remember, this team shut down Detroit in the opener. The Lions have scored 52, 38, 34, and 37 in their other 4 games. They were held to 13 against Green Bay. Against Washington, Commanders scored 18. They scored 27 plus in all 3 games since. 2 of them came with a backup quarterback. So they shut out Cleveland for 56 minutes. That was a very fluky loss. Randomness happens sometimes against good defensive teams, and that happened to the Packers. I didn't downgrade them at all off that Browns loss. It was just one of those fluky finishes. And obviously the defense didn't play well against Dallas. They couldn't hold a pair of leads inside of 5 minutes. When you read the quotes after the game, LaFleur, talking about how he made a mistake before halftime, giving where he should have just run out the clock. Instead, Dallas scored a cheap TD. And, quote, I thought it was like a snowball effect. We never recovered from that point forward. It wasn't just one thing either. The defensive call was man, but it was played too soft. They allowed easy completions. It wasn't a good defensive game. So here's a Packers team. They're off a loss and a tie and a bye in their last 3 weeks. All right. We haven't seen them cover a point spread since Thursday night of week 2. This team doesn't have a betting bandwagon right now. Not by any stretch of the imagination. Defensively, the Packers have these great numbers, but they haven't forced turnovers. They had 1 turnover against the Lions in week 1, but since then, a key interception in that game. Since then, the only turnover the defense has created was a 4th down heave at the end of the first half in Cleveland. That was picked off. So only 1 turnover since that week 1 game against the Lions. This is something they put a ton of emphasis on in the preseason. And I would expect, and so does LaFleur, quote, there's been a couple more out there that we haven't quite capitalized on. It just hasn't rolled our way up to this point. Green Bay is going to force turnovers. This defense will be just fine in that regard. The offense is still making big plays in bunches. Look, this might be the best team in the league. Detroit's power rated up there. Green Bay, the Lions. You got Philly, KC, Buffalo. The Packers have to be in that discussion. And, of course, they're playing the Bengals this week. If they blow them out, it'll be Cincy's 4th straight blowout loss. Cincy won't get as much, or Green Bay won't get as much credit as they deserve. And if they don't blow out Cincy, and they don't have a great track record under LaFleur under bye weeks, If they don't blow out the Bengals and it's Joe Flacco's first game, there's going to be some randomness. The markets are going to crash on this team. Again, they haven't covered a point spread since Thursday night of week 2. But make no mistake about it. You read the quotes. This is the youngest team in the league, an average age of 25.2 years old. All right. And the quote from LaFleur, these guys have experience now. They played in big games. Hopefully we can learn from those experiences. There's no substitute for everything that comes with it. I'm a big believer in how important the character is of people in this league, from players to coaches and support staff. That's what I feel great about. We have the right people. I'm buying Green Bay now. I know they're 14.5-point favorites, which tells us the markets haven't crashed on them just yet. But this is a team that has nothing but upside, and I think the markets are pricing them like one of the best 2 or 3 teams in the league, like they should be. Buy the Packers right here in week 6.
We're starting looking at teams that had bye weeks. 4 teams had bye weeks last week. We're going to read a lot. These teams are healthier. They're better off a bye. Is that true? I'll have that for you in just 1 minute. Is it better to have an early bye week or a late bye week? We'll look at bye weeks by game numbers, and we're going to finish it off with 3 NFL systems, all better than 70%. I am Ralph Michaels. This is the Wager Talk Bet On It TNA report for the NFL for the week starting Thursday, October the 9th. And if you haven't followed, TNA means exactly what you think it does, trends and angles. Well, we're going to show you 2 charts. Let's take a look at the first one. Hopefully you're aware of this number, but if not, this is exactly why we do this show. I don't think anywhere you're going to read about a game this upcoming Sunday where they say, oh, this team is off a bye. That is a negative. But take a look at this chart. You'll see on the left-hand side, those are teams off a bye overall, teams off a bye as a home favorite, a home dog, an away favorite, and an away dog. Well, if you blindly bet every NFL team since 2015 off a bye, you have only gone 49.1%, meaning you've lost 51%. If you are a home favorite off a bye, it's the worst number on the board, guys. 45% going 58-71 against the spread. So teams are at home. They spend time with their families. They caught up on bills, playing with kids, visiting relatives, and now they're a home favorite. Again, a 55% fade. Teams that are a home dog off a bye, 49%. Teams as an away favorite off a bye, 48.5%. And there's only one profitable category. Teams that are off a bye and now an away dog, 55%. On the right-hand side of the chart, you see that on top, you see it says previously home win, previously home loss, previously away win, and previously away loss. So those are what happened prior to the bye. But let's look at the away dogs again. It doesn't matter if the away dog is off a home win or a home loss. They are consistent the entire time. And in fact, if they are off a home loss, they have gone 12-7, 63% against the spread. Also, look at teams off a home loss as an away favorite. They're a positive green number as well. And a home favorite off a previous home win, 57.6% against the spread. Remember, take a picture of this chart, or I'll post this on Twitter as well, at CalSportsLV. So the only positive situation for betting NFL teams off a bye is if they're an away dog. And let me break that down simply. Does that make sense to you? It does. We are creatures of habit. When you are at home, you haven't practiced, you're out of your routine, and then you come into practice the week of the bye, the week of the game, and you start practicing. I think it's a benefit knowing you're an underdog. You're not looking past your opponent. Plus, it gives you more structure. You traveled to that site. You stayed at the team hotel for several nights. You had your traditional walkthroughs on the road. All of those things bring some normalcy. So we'll see if this chart continues to have the same type of success as we are now into the bye weeks for the 2025 NFL season. It's hard to quantify. Are early season buys better than late season buys? Well, you've heard coaches say both things. But I wanted to break down week by week what teams do if they are off a bye. So the left-hand column is all, and those are the games. You see that the buys are game number 4. So that means the bye was pre-game 4 and goes all the way to week 16. I do want to point out that week 16, those 2 teams that played week 16 with a bye on deck, that was not a traditional bye. That was that Cincinnati Buffalo game a couple years ago that with the almost tragedy that they didn't play that game. Since they didn't play a game, it got counted as a bye. It wasn't a traditional bye. I just put the data in there so you could see it as well. But let's look at teams off a bye playing game 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. 50%, 54%, 46%, 53%, and 55%. So 4 of the 5 weeks prior to week 9 or game number 8 and earlier are 50% or better. Take a look at those teams weeks 9, 10, 11, and 12. Not 1 week has a team's been over 50%. You'll see game number 11, they are exactly 50%. So game 9, 10, and 12 are all negative numbers if teams are playing in that game number off a bye. There's not much to show in the what they were previous to the bye, and now they're a home favorite, a home dog, away favorite, away dog. But take a look at the away favorites. That does shock me. Game 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. If you are a home favorite playing in any of those games off a bye, there is not one positive number. So that is the takeaway. If you are a home favorite from game 10 and prior off a bye, it has been a clean fade for those teams. And take a look at home dogs. There is only one red number. That's an 0-1 number. And there's a 50% number. So again, not a wow number, but clearly home dogs have been better than home favorites. So as far as the chart's concerned, going back to 2015, more teams have had success playing game 8 or earlier coming off their bye week than they have later in the season. Guys, do us a favor. If you learned one thing on these videos today, just smash that like button. Leave a comment. It gives me great ideas on what to do for these charts. And again, if you hit the like button, it allows us to continue to do all these free recordings, hopefully making you a better. Before I get to my 3 super NFL systems, I do want to remind you that I will have an NFL 5% available for Sunday, and it'll be $35. Now I want to tell you why not to buy that 5%. Well, our Weekend Warrior package has been an amazing addition to Wager Talk this season. For $49, you get all of Saturday's college football, you get all of Sunday's NFL, and if your service has a Monday Night Football game, you'll get it as a bonus. Best of all, you don't need to wait to the weekend. If you subscribe to the Weekend Warrior today, as soon as I load those plays, you'll get them, and you can bet them at the exact same line that I bet them at. College football on a 27-14 run, 66%, number 2 in college football since the start of the 2024 season. NFL and college football best bets. Those are 4% and 5% plays, 37 and 16, 70%. My NFL 5%, again, $35, 6 and 1, 86%, or part of the Weekend Warrior. My NFL teasers rated 4% and 5%, 16 and 3, 84%. And guys, I had a bad college football weekend last week. I lost at 5% on Friday. I went 1 on 3 on Saturday. So if you have someone that's had success for as many weeks I've had over the past 2 seasons, and they are coming off a poor week, I remember the New England Patriots and Belichick and Brady. When they were coming off a loss, you would always bet them. Do the same, guys. Quality handicappers tend to bounce back strong. Make sure you're on board this week for the $49 Weekend Warrior. Well, my 3 NFL super systems for this week. The first one is a fade situation. These teams are only 17, 57, and 6 against the spread. That is 23% or a 77% fade. What is the 23% system that dates back to 2015? Home dogs of 3.5 or more if their opponent is off a loss as a home favorite. That's it. You fade a home dog of 3.5 or more facing in a team that lost as a home favorite straight up. 4 teams apply this week. The teams to fade: Atlanta, Baltimore, Miami, and the New York Giants. So this system is telling us to play on the Bills, Rams, Chargers, and Eagles. System number 2. Teams that needed a mighty comeback to win the game and are now an underdog or a favorite up to 4.5. Those teams that trailed going into the fourth quarter by 10 points or more and won the game, and again are now a small favorite up to -4.5 or an underdog, are 12-35. That is 25.5% against the spread. What team should we fade that made a strong fourth quarter comeback? Well, it was on a crazy interception, fumble, touchdown, the Titans win. Tennessee is in that fade situation. It says to play on the Las Vegas Raiders at the clip of 74.5%, or again, to fade the Titans in their 25.5% situation. And finally, away teams as a favorite or a dog or a touchdown up to a dog playing a conference game, and on the season, their turnover margin is averaging plus at least 0.5 per game. So that means after 2 games, you have to be plus 1 turnover. After 4 games, you have to be plus 2 turnovers. After 10 games, you have to be plus 5 turnovers. So half a game average is your turnover margin for the season. So you got a quality team on the road, conference game, and they're either an away favorite or a small away dog. Those teams are 32, 13-2 against the spread, 71.1%. Which team should we be playing on the road with a great turnover margin? The Philadelphia Eagles fall into that 71.1% category. Check out my Weekend Warrior. Don't miss my NFL 5%. Hit that like button and have a great weekend of football. This is Ralph Michaels saying, may the ball bounce your way this weekend.
Week 7 of college football. Boy, does that sound crazy to say out loud. We've got a bunch of top 25 matchups, barking dogs, best bets. The Deli's still cooking, and that train is still rolling down the tracks. Let's get into this week's episode of Bet on It. All right, Kelly Stewart here, joined by Yanni the Greek and Marco D'Angelo. This is the college football edition of Bet on It. So we're going to get into some of these top 25 games. And I'm going to go first, 12 p.m. Eastern. Number 1, Ohio State is a 2-touchdown favorite at number 17, Illinois. 49.5 here is the total. And actually, the Buckeyes have that hook hanging on. And that has me looking towards the Illini. Now, one could argue that the Buckeyes own the series, but these two have not played each other since November of 2017. And since losing to Michigan in that close regular season loss last year, Ohio State has gone 9-0 straight up, 8-0-1 against the spread. But hey, Brett Bielema and the Illini are not far behind. Since their bye week in mid-November of last year, Illini 9-1 straight up and against the spread. And you guys remember that lone loss at Indiana earlier this season. I'm sure the Illinois team would like to forget that one as well. But I like this Illinois team here at home, catching points, double digits for Bielema as a home dog. I think you guys know what to do. I might not get to the window with this team, but Illinois and some contest plays will be it for me. 3:30 p.m. Eastern, number 7, Indiana, down to 7.5. This one opened at 10 there on Sunday night at Circa at number 3, Oregon. Total 55.5. VR, what do you make of this line move before you get into the total here?
I wasn't surprised. Listen, Oregon's top 3 in the country as far as power ratings go. But Indiana's right there as well. And I think they got them ranked correctly. I've been able to take advantage of the incorrect rankings based mostly on records than anything else. And I talk about it all the time, how the cream does eventually rise to the top. But this is just a perfect example of the rankings being on point with the power ratings. And based on that, I wasn't surprised to see some money come in on the dog. But where it sits now, I don't think there's all that much value on the side. So I'm going to look to the total. And I think we're going to get a extra couple points by going under here based on the high profile offenses. And obviously both teams coming in having put up decent amount of points week in and week out. But if you look at the defensive side of the ball, both teams have allowed more than 14 points only one time. That was it. So you're looking at 2 high-level defenses, and usually that's the perfect storm to go over because the market overreacts to just how good the defenses are. So the line's shaded towards that bias, and I talk about it all the time. Defenses create points as well, turnovers, special teams, but because we're talking about the high-profile offense of Oregon and the narrative about them being a team that puts up a lot of points, and Indiana doing the same thing more or less week in and week out, we got a higher line than it should be, sitting at about 55.5. And it's a telling sign that this line hasn't gone up, even though you're starting to see the public lining up on that over. So definitely some resistance from sharp bettors. I agree with that. So we're going to go under 55 for the TV game this week.
Speaking of those defenses, wow, 3:30 p.m. Eastern, number 6, Oklahoma is headed to the Cotton Bowl to take on Texas. Now, this line's flipped back and forth between who was the favorite. The current one here on the odds logic screen, Oklahoma -1.5, total 42.5. Marco, that's what I'm looking at in this one. I'm like, everybody wants to talk about these two defenses. We've seen this Red River rivalry, shootout, whatever you want to call it these days, be an absolute score fest before. I thought 42.5 was really low, but you're actually looking at a side here.
Yeah, I am. And as you said, the line's gone back and forth. And when I did the game last night, I was looking at it. Actually, Texas was the favorite last night. This is what tells the story for me. You look at this game and you've got Oklahoma, who is ranked 6th in the nation, and you got Texas, who, if you remember, came into the season as the number 1 team in the country in the preseason rankings. And what happened? Well, they lose that opening game against Ohio State, and then last week against all teams, winless Florida, they get beat last week, and all of a sudden they're out of the top 25. We're getting value with this Texas team, in my opinion, and the market corrected itself. When you've got, even if it's a pick 'em +1, -1, you got a ranked team versus an unranked team. That sends up all the red flags in the world that Oklahoma might just be overrated in this one. And let's be honest, they are undefeated, but they really only had 2 signature wins. And if you look at the 2 signature wins, the first one came against Michigan at home, and that was the second game of the season for them. And it was the first game for Michigan quarterback on the road. You know, they got that highly touted freshman at Michigan, but going into Oklahoma for your first road game, that's a tall order for anyone. And, you know, they got the win there. Their other win, well, they had a touchdown victory over Auburn. And, you know, the jury is still out. Is Auburn a decent team? Not a decent team. It was a lackluster performance. I think Texas, they're playing with house money now. Granted, normally, and VR mentioned it last week, and shout out to him when he talked about the Penn State UCLA game and talking about Dream Crusher games. A team that had expectations to win a national championship, when you lose for the second time, your season's over as far as the national championship goes. But because they are playing their heated rival, I'm not going to play that card yet for the Dream Crusher. They want to wreck somebody else's dream. And if you can knock Oklahoma from the ranks of the unbeaten, they're going to show up for this game. I'm going to go ahead. I am going to take Texas. You talk about defense. There's never been a problem with the Texas defense at all. The problem has been with Arch Manning. But if he has a clean game and just improves at all, I think they win this football game. I'm going to go with them, Texas. And the other part of being out of it, that gives them the opportunity, Kelly, to take chances in the game. What do they have to lose? You can gamble more on fourth downs, you know, when you're sitting there with 2 losses. It's not like you're playing not to lose instead of playing to win. I'll go ahead and take Texas. Can't really call it an upset, but it will be an unranked team knocking off a ranked team.
Yeah, upset, at least in the eyes of the talking heads, since they don't actually follow the point spreads. I want to give you guys a big shout out for following us here on Bet On It. Make sure you guys give us that thumbs up button, hit the like, and of course, subscribe. And if you're looking to become a Wager Talk Insider, WT.buzz/insiders gets you tons of extra content, early content, and of course, a $5 coupon to use each month over at wagertalk.com. VR, we're going to get up to you next. The Steam Room has been rocking and rolling on Sundays in the NFL edition, but you guys get your own preview of what that looks like right here on Bet On It each week. Where have we seen the money going early on Wednesday afternoon, VR?
Yeah, let's talk about some of these marquee games in college football. Start off with Florida getting points once again. Steam Florida. It seems like this entire season they've been taking the Florida side. They took the 8.5 and they took the 8 on Florida. Also, double digits, took South Carolina plus the 10 over the LSU side. We also saw Oklahoma money at that opener of 3, got bet down really quickly. Oklahoma money line, Oklahoma plus 2.5, Oklahoma plus 2. Seeing a lot of love on Oklahoma. 197 Indiana. I already touched on them against Oregon. A lot of that value has been extracted. They took the 8 off the board as well there. Florida State laid the chalk with Florida State against Pitt, laid the 9, laid the 9.5, laid the 10 there. Then Mizzou against Alabama, taking the home dog there at plus 4, plus 3.5. That's why you're looking at a field goal game now. Then Arizona State plus the 6 at Utah. And finally, BYU -1 against Arizona. Those are some of the more high-profile games. Haven't seen a move on that Georgia-Auburn yet. Haven't seen sharp money, but still a little early in the week. And again, a lot of those less profile games, you're seeing movement, but pay attention on Thursdays. I talked about it before. That's when you'll see the totals move after 9 a.m. Pacific time. Pay attention to Odds Logic. Some of the biggest total moves come on Thursdays.
If you guys are looking for a free week trial of Odds Logic, oddslogic.com/ace. Get you 1 free week so you guys can check that out. And if not, we still have the Wager Talk free odds page, wt.buzz/odds. Let's get into those barking dogs, guys, because it has been by far our best segment, not only here on the college football show, but also in the NFL show. Marco and I, well, let's put it this way. Marco's got a double-digit barking dog because he's going to try to keep up with what VR somehow pulled out last week, and it wasn't even close. Great call by VR. We didn't even have to sweat that one. But Marco, I love this. This is a double-digit dog that was also on my radar. I don't know if I'm going to get to the window with the money line, but maybe I could use a little convincing.
Well, you got to put a little sprinkle, Kelly. Come on. You got to put a little seasoning in the stew there for Saturday. And this is one of those ones where this is the poster child for the saying that I do all the time. No team is as good as their best game, nor are they as bad as their worst game. Enter Clemson and Boston College. Clemson's coming off their best game of the year. They won 38-10 over North Carolina. Well, let's point out the two obvious things. First of all, North Carolina stinks. Okay, that's the first part. Second part, Clemson had 2 weeks to prepare for that game, and Clemson was coming off the last time they played. They were an 18-point favorite at home to Syracuse and lost outright. So you had a very focused Clemson team playing a very bad North Carolina team, and that's what you got, a 38-10 blowout. On the flip side of that, you had Boston College that absolutely got boat raced at Pittsburgh last week, 48-7. It was a pillar to post game from Pitt. Pitt even changed quarterbacks for that game. Guy made his first start and just drilled Boston College. Now you look at that one, a couple things from that. One, Boston College was -3 in turnovers. That helped the game spin out of control quickly. And it was a horrible scheduling spot for Boston College. They have been playing a bunch of road games early in the season, and it was their third road game out of their past 4. And in those 3 road games that they had in the last 4, one of them was a cross-country trip to Stanford. We've talked about this silliness with the ACC schedule with California and Stanford, playing in the ACC just doesn't make sense with travel, and it creates problems for teams going west or those teams coming east. This is also a spot where you think they were looking ahead to Clemson a little bit. Which do you get more excited about, going to Pitt or playing Clemson? I'm going to go ahead and take Boston College in this one. Prior to that Pitt debacle, their 3 losses were by 2, 10, and 4 points. They were very competitive in all of their games. I am not sold on Clemson just yet. And yes, I realize Boston College sitting at 1-4. What do they got to play for? Well, when your season's over early, you risk mailing it in the rest of the season, except you're going to circle a couple games on your schedule. And I looked at the remaining schedule for Boston College, and if their so-called, quote, bowl games for them will be this Clemson game and later in the year when Notre Dame comes to town. Other than that, I probably will not be involved in a Boston College game unless I'm going against them. But this week, we're going to take them plus the points. I think this is going to be much closer than people think. And we'll go ahead and put just a little sprinkle on the money line as well. I got to try to keep up with VR, but again, congrats to him on that call with UCLA last
Thank you,
week.
brother.
Yeah, now I got to try to keep up with both of you because VR also has a double-digit dog, and I thought my 9-point underdog was going to be sufficient. It is apparently not. Now we have a competition going on here. VR, this one's, as a girl who follows the Big 12 very closely, we'll just call it interesting. Tell me why you like Oklahoma State here in this spot.
Yeah, and I gave this out to subscribers as a premium play immediately. Number one, I think Houston's a overvalued team. A little bit overrated, sitting at 4-1. They've had a very easy strength of schedule. In fact, it's the close to the 80th toughest schedule so far in college football. So not surprised they're sitting at 4-1. But if you look, even though they've done well against the spread, also they're profitable at 3-2. They haven't been winning with big margin. Meaning it's not like they're putting up 40 plus points in game. In fact, the most they put up was 36 points. To cover 14.5, you got to be able to put up a lot of points. And I think as bad as Oklahoma State has looked offensively and defensively, they've had a much tougher strength of schedule to date. And I think if anything, they're going to improve off of that. They're going to start to progress towards the mean. They're not that bad of a football team as they've shown to date. With that said, Houston's strength is their defense. That's where they're, most efficient. At least it's appeared that way so far this early in the season. They're 9th nationally in yardage per game. But dig a little deeper into the metrics, and they're probably in like the top 40 defensively overall, their efficiency. So they're not a top 10 defense like it appears. That's just, against yardage allowed, which stat doesn't mean all that much. So I think they're getting a little too much credit for their defense. And I think a lot of that has to do with that strength of schedule. Also, their stud quarterback had that concussion protocol last week. So we know he's not 100%. They're going to want to be careful with him for sure. In Oklahoma State, tough environment, a strong home field advantage, almost 3 points, about 2.8 something. That's pretty high for college football. Getting 2 touchdowns plus, I think, is a gift. It's worth a little sprinkle on the money line as well. Again, are we going to hit back-to-back big money lines? We'll find out Saturday. But I do think they could keep this within the number. I think Houston's one of those phony 4-1 teams. And I think Oklahoma State's not as bad as they've looked. Again, strength of schedule had a lot to do with it. Give me the 2 touchdowns with Oklahoma State and sprinkle that money line, because it's a generous number.
I know a lot of people may say that Oklahoma State doesn't have some big home field advantage because they fired Gundy and their team's not any good. You guys haven't been paying attention. They have still been packing that house. It is absolutely wild to see, as somebody who is kind of a fair weather fan themselves this season. That being said, I'm taking a 9-point underdog, the littlest dog here on the board in South Carolina. So I was happy to hear VR say during the steam segment that he saw sharp money come from 10 to 9 there. Look, LSU, they won the last 8 meetings, including that crazy road win 36-33 last year in Columbia. If you guys remember, South Carolina jumped out early, 17-0 over the Tigers, but boom, Lenora Sellers gets knocked out of the game with the injury, and the Gamecocks get reffed to death, 13 penalties for 123 yards. I think it's probably fair to say the Gamecocks have this one circled. Yes, both teams are coming off a bye, but I think this LSU team is not as good as everybody had thought over the summertime. 10-3 against the spread in their last 13 SEC matches. I like the Gamecocks, and I'm going to go ahead and apologize to South Carolina because I can't wait to see how you guys lose this game in horrible fashion. Yes, that's what exactly happened last week to all of our underdogs. It is the kiss of death. If I put them in the barking dog segment, they're going to cover but not win. So apologies in advance. Let's get right into the Deli. The Deli has been rocking and rolling there, Marco. 16-9 on the season. You also do an additional Deli segment each week here on the Wager Talk YouTube channel. Can you please let everybody know where they can find that and who the sandwich game of the week is?
Yum.
Yeah, Kelly, that 16-9 record that you referenced, that's on the bonus edition of Marco's Deli. We've had 5 episodes so far this season, 5 games each week. We've had 4 winning weeks out of 5. Last week was our first losing week. We went 2-3 on the show last week, and we are 16-9 with these plays for the season. And tune in every Thursday. We release it. It's out late on Thursday, and then it is part of the Mega podcast as well, the Mega Show here with the Bet On It show. So, if you like what we do here and you want seconds, we give you 1 Deli special here every week on Bet On It. You want 5 more, and I break the games down, tell you the insights of how I'm looking at the games and what the situation is that I'm looking at. It's both educational and profitable. Tune in every week to Marco's Deli. For this week's sandwich game of the week, well, this was a game that last week made the bonus show. We took Wisconsin last week as one of those Deli specials. Now, it wasn't pretty, but it got there. They were plus 17 against Michigan, and they lost by 14. And the reason we were on Wisconsin in that game is because Michigan was in a big sandwich spot last week. Well, this week, it's Wisconsin who's in that sandwich spot, and it's a big one. If you look at Wisconsin, they're coming off playing Michigan last week. And guess what? Take a look at next week, who they play. Yeah, that's right. They've got the number 1 team in the country coming to their house. Ohio State will be coming to town next week. Iowa has had 2 weeks to prepare for them. Now, that gives them a huge edge in this matchup. Offensively, these 2 teams are basically even. They put up about the same type of numbers. But where the difference is in between these 2 teams is the defense. Iowa has the upper hand. They're allowing just 4.5 yards per play defensively. Given the superior defense, given the extra prep time, given the bad scheduling spot that we have Wisconsin in, there's only one way for me to go in this game, and I'm going to go ahead and lay it with Iowa. Lay the 3.5 in this one. I've got Iowa winning 23-13. Yeah, it'll be one of those classic Iowa games. There's not going to be a lot of points scored in it, but I like the Iowa Hawkeyes to prevail on Saturday against Wisconsin as the sandwich game of the week.
All right, it is time for best bets. VR, you're going to be up first here.
Yeah.
This one's no surprise. I think this trio is going to be all over Texas, even though I need them to lose a couple more games for my season win total to go under the total.
So far, so good in season on Bet On It, 14-4 in college football. And I'm going to fade the sharp money that's come in on Oklahoma. The only thing I don't like is the talk about the quarterback material not being a game time decision. He's going to go. But I don't like that negative on Oklahoma. I wish everything was positive on the Oklahoma side, because here's the bottom line. Forget the handicap. Forget the X's and O's. This is a simple case of an overreaction to a small sample size. And let me explain. Prior to the season starting, Oklahoma was nowhere near the top 10. Texas was third power rating wise, top 5 for sure amongst all sharp power ratings. Many had them top 3, top 1 or 2 for some. Okay. We saw them lose to Ohio State the first week. No surprise. Ohio State's the best team in the country. They were before the season started. They were going into this week. All right. They lost that by, a touchdown. Since then, the stock on Texas continues to drop and the stock on Oklahoma is going up. But here's the bottom line. There's nowhere that Oklahoma is better, meaning like efficiency wise. Offense, you look at Texas, they're top 15. Oklahoma barely in the top 30. Defense, Texas top 5, Oklahoma top 10. You look at power rating wise, I get it. Both Texas and Penn State have been dropped from the rankings, but I'm telling you right now, there are only, maybe 5 or 6 teams that should be favored over Texas on a neutral field. That's correct. On a neutral field, only 5 or 6 teams should be favored over Texas. That doesn't mean that the books wouldn't make a team favored over Texas, because the book's job is to balance risk. But what would happen if that is the case? You would see wise guys lining up and taking Texas, because their power ratings reflect mine. And mine show right now that Texas is still a top 10 team in the country. Oklahoma's barely a top 20 team in the country. And that's going to play itself out with strength of schedule, because up until now, Texas has played the 10th toughest schedule in all of college football. Oklahoma's played the 58th toughest schedule in all of college football. Well, coming up for them over the rest of the season, top 5. So we'll see what Oklahoma's made of over the next couple weeks. With all that said, this is simply a power rating bet, where I think that the market's so overreacted on Texas's short-term results. And what did they do? They haven't been getting blown out or anything like that. Again, getting Texas at a pick 'em at home -1 is a gift. They should be at least a 3-point favorite in this spot at minimum. Give me the Texas Longhorns. Fade the wise guys. I love Texas on Saturday, dude.
All right, Marco D'Angelo, before we get into your best bet, can you please let everybody know what is going on over at wagertalk.com? We have a new special up called the Weekend Warrior.
Yeah, well, that's been up for a few weeks, Kelly, and it's been a very successful, very popular. You can pick your favorite handicapper at Wager Talk. $49. You'll get all of their plays Saturday, Sunday in football. And if your handicapper has a play on the Monday night football game, and there's two of them this week, so good chance your capper will have a play, you'll get that as a free bonus on Monday. Now, if you want to jump on board and get all the plays for a 7-day period, we also have a $77 package going at Wager Talk as well. And with baseball playoffs in full swing, few games left in the WNBA playoffs, and we had hockey begin on Tuesday night. Next week, you got basketball. The NBA starts. Great time to grab those all access packages so you never miss a play from your favorite handicapper. Kelly, we're going to go with the same playbook I ran last week. Our best bet last week came home. We laid some chalk with Texas A&M, but it was one of those scenarios where I absolutely loved the setup going into the game. And I've got a carbon copy of it this week. We're going to take a look at James Madison. I love what people are going to do with this game because they're going to look at what they just saw last and overreact to it. Last week, Louisiana, James Madison's opponent this week, was in a shootout with Marshall. They won in double overtime, 54-51. While James Madison was playing a 14-7 snooze fest victory over Georgia State. They were a 20-point favorite in that game. The knee-jerk reaction for the betting public is going to be, I got one team that scored 54 points. I got another team that only scored 14 last week, and they're laying 18 this week. Yeah, where do I sign up? I can't get enough of the dog. Not so fast, my friends, as Lee Corso would say. I love taking a good team, and let me tell you, James Madison is a very good team for this conference. I love taking those teams when they come off a scare like they had last week. You also have the situation because of that scare, you know that team's going to come to play and they're going to be focused. You also are going to get the benefit of some line value because the market's going to overreact to what they saw last week. And the fact that Louisiana scored 54 points last week, that was against Marshall. Take a look at Marshall's defensive stats. They're putrid, okay? They're going to be going against James Madison, who has an elite defense. James Madison has only allowed one team in 5 games to score over 13 points. That one team was Louisville. That was a team from a Power 5 conference, the ACC, and they held them to 28 points, where Louisville generally scores more than that. This is a horrible Louisiana defense, especially against the run. They allow 222 yards per game against the ground, on the ground. Why do I bring that up? Especially in a game where you're laying 18 points. What do I care about the ground game? That's important when you're laying a big number. James Madison averages 243 yards per game on the ground. So what that means is when James Madison builds a big lead in the second half and you get to that fourth quarter and you have so many times teams just want to try to milk the clock and get out of there, they're going to be doing what they do best. So not only are they shortening the game when they have a big lead, they're protecting the lead. They can add to the lead because they do what they do best. Whereas so often you have a passing team that suddenly tries to run the football in the fourth quarter to protect the lead, and that's just disaster. That's how you get backdoored. That doesn't happen with a good running team. Go ahead and lay the points. This one is going to be blowout city. I've got James Madison winning 41-13 is my college best bet for Bet On It.
Woo, I went back and forth on my best bet for this week and Barking Dog. There's like 6 underdogs I like to win outright, but this team, they owe us after last week, and you guys know exactly where I'm going. We're going to take the points here with Maryland. I cannot believe I'm standing by the hotel pool with a bunch of kids wanting to watch the Yankees. Maryland's up 20. Change the channel, Kelly. Change the channel. They're up 20. The game's over. Well, guess what? The game was not over. You're going to think Maryland might want that one back. 24 unanswered by Washington. And here we are, backing them again as an underdog at home. Speaking of Washington, Malik Washington, quarterback for Maryland, has been absolutely electric. completing almost 70% of his passes. And that is why I like this team. This offense is running on all cylinders. Now, if the defense can come up with a couple of turnovers, I believe they can beat the Cornhuskers here, mainly because Nebraska hasn't won anything on the road, just one of their last 7 road games. What do we expect from the Cornhuskers? They're going to run the ball. They're going to try to eat up the clock. And we know they're going to play smash mouth defense. So great passing defense versus great passing offense. Two worlds collide. And I expect this to be a lower scoring game, making points at a premium. Speaking of defense, Maryland's defense is getting no credit at all, but they're only giving up 12.5 points per game on the season. So yes, last week was kind of an anomaly, and we're going to give the Terps a second chance. Don't forget to sprinkle a little bit on that money line because Maryland will make my parlay for this week. All right, guys, that's it for the college edition of Bet On It. Let's get that recap graphic up for all of you guys that have requested it. We brought you back the music. We brought you back the recap graphic. All we're asking is a little bit of love from you while it's in the comments, whether it's on that like button or hitting subscribe. Thank you to VR. Thank you to Marco. Of course, if you're looking for that NFL edition of Bet On It, you can find it right here. And if you're looking for everything we do here on the show, NFL, college football, and those special segments right here on the Mega Show.
Who's hungry? The deli's open. Hey guys, Marco D'Angelo here for Wager Talk TV. It's another edition of Marco's Deli. This is episode 6. We've had 4 winning weeks out of 5 with Marco's Deli for a 16-9 record overall. Let's keep it rolling. The deli's open. Let's get things started this week. They were good to us last week. It was one of our winners. We're going to come right back with them. Appalachian State is at Georgia State. Now, we're looking at this one, and it's a bad scheduling spot for Georgia State. Last week, Georgia State played the top team in the conference. That was James Madison. And as a 20-point underdog, they only lost 14-7 in that game. We love fading teams who almost pulled off a big upset as a huge underdog. Usually these teams come back the next week flat. That in itself would be enough for us to land on Appalachian State in this game. But what makes this one even better is look at who Georgia State plays next week. That's right, their interstate rival, Georgia Southern. That makes this one mother of a sandwich game. Might call this one the foot-long special. We're going to fade Georgia Southern today and take Appalachian State as play number 1 on this week's Deli. Play number 2, Alabama travels to Missouri. Now, Alabama is in a bad scheduling spot. 2 weeks ago, they had their big showdown game against Georgia at Georgia. They went in there and pulled off the mild upset 24-21. Huge win for them. Then last week, Alabama played Vanderbilt. Now, usually that wouldn't be a big game, and it would be a flat spot for Alabama, looking ahead to this game possibly. But Vanderbilt had beaten Alabama the year before. That just doesn't happen. So you know Alabama was focused for that one. They wanted revenge, and they got it. Now, speaking of revenge, it's Missouri who's the team playing with revenge. Last year, Alabama beat them 34-0. Embarrassed Missouri in that game. Missouri has had 2 weeks to prepare for this game, giving them a big edge in this one. And what seals the deal in this one, and that's what sandwiches are all about, take a look at who Alabama plays next week. They had Georgia, then they had the revenge game against Vanderbilt. Well, they got another revenge game next week, and it's against another top 25 team, Tennessee. We're going to go ahead and take Missouri plus the 3 to pull the upset on Saturday. All right, guys, let's go to play number 3 this week. And we're going to take a look at BYU at Arizona. Now, BYU enters this game undefeated and is ranked 18th in the country. But I got to ask the question, really, how good are they? We don't know. They've played a very soft schedule thus far, and this will clearly be their toughest test. Arizona, they're 4-1 so far, with their lone loss coming at Iowa State. Now, they got pounded at Iowa State 39-14. Iowa State was undefeated until last week. Arizona, they also beat Kansas State. Now, Kansas State has not played well this season, but if you remember, when they started the season, Kansas State and Iowa State played in that opening game in Dublin. Both of those teams were in the top 25 at the time. After that tough luck loss, by Kansas State in that when their season seemed to unravel for them. BYU needs to be careful here. This is a spot where they already beat Arizona last year by a big margin, 41-19. And if they are not focused for this Arizona team, they are in for a dogfight. This Arizona team lost that game last year mainly because they had 4 turnovers. They were their own worst enemy in that game. So if BYU comes in here a little cocky, a little overconfident, and more importantly, look at who they play next week. They play Utah next week. And they say, what's so big about the Utah game? Well, Utah-BYU was always a big rivalry. But because the teams went separate ways in conferences, that rivalry was not anymore. And it used to be called the Holy War. But now that they're both back in the same conference in the Big 12, the rivalry is renewed. And last year, it was a thriller between these two. It was a 1-point game, come right down to the end, 21-20. And they're going to be looking at Utah coming to Provo next week. Horrible spot for them. And then the final thing is, look at this. You've got a ranked team in BYU playing an unranked Arizona team, and the line is only 1.5. BYU is only a 1.5-point favorite. Seems something smells fishy. It's like they're begging you to take BYU. Feels like a trap game to me. I'm going with Arizona plus the 1.5 on Saturday night as BYU gets caught looking ahead to next week. All right, guys, before we head into the final 2 games of this week's show, got some business we got to take care of. First of all, if you're enjoying the video and if you've been playing these games, you've got to be enjoying the videos. Do me a favor. Doesn't cost you anything. It's a nice way of saying thank you. Just give us the thumbs up. It really helps the channel out, guys. Also, leave me a comment. I'll stop back in, talk to you guys. Last week, I said, tell me where you are watching from. I like to see where everybody's at. If you got a play that you like, tell us about it. Got a question? Drop it in there. And by all means, guys, spread the word. Share the video. Tell your friends about it. We want to build Marco's Deli, build the video up and get everybody some winners. And if you like the way I handicap these games and you want to become a premium customer of mine, you can do so. Got a couple specials this week. We're doing the Weekend Warrior once again. It's been a very popular program. If you just want to play on the weekend and all you want to play is football, grab a Weekend Warrior package. You'll get Saturday and Sunday, all of my football plays. If I have a Monday night play, you'll get it free if it's a Monday night football selection. If you want all of my plays and you want to do it for 7 days, now that Weekend Warrior, by the way, is $49, and that would include any 5% plays. And as you know, those 5% plays sell for $35 by themselves. So that's a no-brainer. $14 more, you get the whole weekend. If you want a 7-day all access, and what that means is you get all of my plays in every sport. And guys, right now, every sport is going on except one. NBA. You've got hockey just started this week. Well, guess what? NBA starts next week. You'll get all of my plays in every sport. That's baseball, that's football, college and pro, hockey, NBA, and we still got at least 1 or 2 more WNBA plays as well. That's $77 for 7 days. Check it out over at wagertalk.com. If you want to go directly to my homepage, go to wt.buzz/MD. You'll find both of those specials available there. All right, let's get to those last 2 games on the card. We got 1 college, 1 NFL, and let's get it started with a big one on Saturday. We got Georgia traveling to Auburn. How many weeks in a row can Georgia get up for a big game? Look at their schedule. 3 games back, They went to Tennessee and won in a shootout, 44-41. Their next game, which generally off of a game like that, I would be looking to go against them. They played a big rivalry game. They played Alabama. It was a hard-fought game, 24-21. That was their first loss of the season. Now, did they have a hangover after that game, their first loss? No, because in the SEC, one loss doesn't kill you for the national championship picture in the playoffs. There will be teams with one loss get into the playoffs. And the SEC will probably have a two-loss team get in as well. So everything is still in play for Georgia. So they came to play last week when they played Kentucky, and they took care of business 35-14. Now they're going to go back out on the road. And this is a spot where both of Auburn's losses, they're going to play Auburn, were close. They lost by 6 and 7 points to two very good teams, Oklahoma and Texas A&M. Couple that with the fact that Georgia has a monster game on deck. Georgia next week plays host to number 4 Ole Miss. That's a game that will definitely determine their season. If they get their second loss, they're probably done. If they beat Ole Miss, it catapults them right back into the national championship picture and the SEC crown. This is a classic sandwich spot, look-ahead game. I'm going to take Auburn. They've had 2 weeks to prepare for Georgia, another huge advantage. Let's call the upset. Auburn, take them, plus the 3.5. And for the final game on this week's Deli show, we're going to go to the NFL, and we're going to take a look at Dallas at Carolina. You're going to have to hold your nose with this play because this is a tough one to swallow. I'm not going to argue that fact, but we've got to trust the process, and we got to trust the setup in this game. The Cowboys, 2 weeks ago, played a highly anticipated big game against Green Bay. That's all you heard about. Micah Parsons coming back to Dallas and all of that, and it lived up to all the hype. It was a 40-40 shootout, ended in a tie in overtime. And yeah, last week was a spot where you thought they would be flat. Well, it just turns out the Jets are just a bad football team. And Dallas was able to go to New York and beat the Jets. So beating the Jets last week, why can't they beat Carolina this week? Well, a couple reasons. One, the Jets are winless. Carolina actually has 2 wins. They're 2-3 straight up, and they're 3-2 against the spread. Also, this is the second week in a row on the road. That's always tough for teams, especially you got the win in the first game of that 2-game road trip. But the clincher for me here is coming off of the big game against Dallas. Then you carried it over, got a win on the road. Look at what they've got on deck. Dallas has Washington next week at home. Washington, division rival, hated division rival. It's just a big-time look-ahead spot. And the fact remains, Dallas still has a bad defense. Carolina can move the football when they don't turn it over. If Carolina has a clean game, they win this game. I'm taking Carolina here with the sandwich spot look ahead. We're going to go Carolina plus the 3 over the Dallas Cowboys for our 5th and final play. All right, guys, that's it for this week's Deli show. I appreciate you guys hanging around and watching the video. As I said, do me a favor, give me that thumbs up. Leave me a comment. I want to hear from you guys. And until next week, guys, good luck with all of your bets, and let's cash some tickets. I'll talk to you guys next week. Thanks for watching Marco's Deli.
How do conference teams do off a bye week? How do ranked teams do the game after a loss? And we'll finish it off with 4 college football super systems. 2 of them 72% and higher. 2 of them 80% plus. I'll get to them in just a minute. I am Ralph Michaels. This is the Wager Talk Bet on It TNA college football show for the week starting October the 8th. I love this time of year. We now have Conference USA playing on Wednesdays, Next week, I believe they start next week. MAC games as well on Tuesday. We basically have football 7 days a week from now to Thanksgiving. Nothing is more exciting. Well, let's look at our first chart, guys. This is conference teams with at least 11 days of rest playing an opponent that they have more rest. So an opponent can have a bye as well, but as long as you have more rest than your opponent, you make this chart. I used 11 days of rest, so that gets out the traditional Thursday to Sundays for those teams, or play Wednesday to Saturday. So we'll see what happens with those games. When we look at conference teams off a bye with more rest, it's pretty surprising, guys. Home favorites off a bye, 49% since 1990. Home favorites off a bye since 2021, 48%. Let's skip down to the away favorites. Away favorites off a bye since 1990, 47%. And away favorites since 2021, conference game, 11 plus days of rest or more, and more rest than your opponent, only 48%. Home dogs, 52% since 1990, 60%, guys, since 2021. That's been a strong trend, the strongest on the board. So those are all home dogs off a bye, playing a conference game with more rest than their opponent, and away dogs in that role, 55% since 1990, 57.4% since 2021. Surprising to me that, much like the NFL, you think coming off a bye and now a favorite is a positive? Make sure you check out my NFL TNA video as well. I'll be breaking down NFL teams after a bye, so you'll be covered for both college football and the National Football League. Chart number 2. Teams off a loss as a ranked opponent since 2021. If you blindly bet every team that lost as a ranked opponent the next week, you've gone 49.7%. So it's not like you can't play them, but don't think it's a positive. If you lost as a top 10 team, you went 46.6% the next week. And if you lost as a top 5 team, you are 82 and 89 against the spread, 48%. Now, I also broke down categories that this game, you're a home favorite, you're a home dog, you're an away favorite, you're an away dog. Well, folks, look at all that red if you're on the road off a ranked loss. Away favorites, 40%. Away dogs, 35%. If you're a top 10 team on the road the next week, you've only gone 6 and 14 on the road. And if you're a top 5 team on the road, you've gone 3 and 5. That's adding both the away favorite and away dog roles. So we checked out conference teams off a bye. We checked out ranked teams, what they do the following week. Before I get to our 4 big systems, including 2 that are 80% plus, I do want to mention our Weekend Warrior is live again this week. I had a rare losing week in college football. I dropped a 5% on Saturday, on Friday, a totals play, went 1 and 3 on Saturday. Bad weeks are going to happen. Hey, I got it past me. I'm looking to turn the corner. Still number 2 in college football since the start of 2024. College football run, 27 and 14, 66%. NFL and college football best bets. Those plays rated 4% and 5%, 37 and 16, 70%. And in the NFL, my 5% plays, 6 and 1, 86%. And my NFL teasers rated as a 4% or 5%, 16 and 3, 84%. Get all my Saturday college football, all of my Sunday NFL, and Monday Night Football if I have a play as well, just $49. I will have an NFL 5%. That by itself is $35. Why not pay $14 more and get the rest of Sunday NFL and all of Saturday's college football, again, for just $14 additional dollars. And guys, if you learned one thing in this video, do me a favor, just hit the like button. I'm taking a lot of these questions that you guys asked, turning them into these charts. So thank you. Keep those ideas coming as we'll continue to do this show weekly. Hit the like button. Make sure you're following Wager Talk on all their social media networks. Over 300,000 people follow Wager Talk social media. You should as well. Well, let's get to these 4 systems to finish off this segment. Number 1, the system record did not surprise me. The team it applies to clearly surprised me for this week. If a team is a favorite and they have allowed at least 6.5 yards rushing in each of the last 2 games from game number 4 and later. Why do I use game 4 and later? Well, there's a lot of crappy MAC teams and Sun Belt teams that have to play strong money games against FCS foes. So that really isn't indicative of how you're going to play when you get into your conference schedule, which most people have played a conference game by game 4, if not clearly by game 5. So the ATS record for favorites that have allowed 6.5 yards rushing in back-to-back games, 18 wins and 60 losses. That is 23.1% against the spread, or a 77% fade. Which favorite this week in college football has allowed back-to-back foes to rush for over 6.5 yards per carry? Or were you surprised that it's the Alabama Crimson Tide? Well, last week against Vanderbilt, they allowed 135 yards rushing and 7.1 yards per carry. The week before, they allowed Georgia to rush for 227 yards and 6.9 yards per carry. And let's remember, on the road in the opener, they allowed Florida State to rush for 230 yards on 49 carries. So fade Alabama, system number 1, as they've allowed 6.5 YPC back-to-back games. System number 2, top 10 game this week, Oregon, Indiana. Well, if we have 2 top 10 teams, it's a conference game, and the lines are between the 9s. So the home team is anywhere from +8.5 to -8.5. So we're just skipping teams that are a huge favorite or huge dog. And there's not very many of those when you get to 2 top-ranked teams. But with those parameters, a conference game and a total over 46, the home team, both teams top 10, lines between the 9s, like Oregon this week, not only they're 18-7-3, 72% against the spread, those games have gone over 75%, 21 overs and 7 unders. So ranked foes between the 9s, it says to play on Oregon and play on Oregon and Indiana over the total. Our 2 80% systems. Teams that have won at least 4 straight games are off a home game, and now they're a conference home dog. Seems pretty simple. You got a conference home dog, playing well, didn't have to travel, won at least their last 4 games. Those teams are 27-6-1 against the spread, 81.8%. Who does that apply to? Missouri and North Texas. So we actually have a double system. One on Missouri, one says to fade Alabama. Oh yeah, by the way, those conference home dogs on a 4-game win streak, also 11, 22-1 over under. That is 67% to the under. And our final system is 7, 29-2, 19.4%. We're looking for favorites that are undefeated with at least 5 or more wins. They're averaging under 50 points per game. Their opponents are averaging under 17 points per game. And the foe they're playing this week has a win percentage of 70% or higher. So Ohio State, they're a favorite. Ohio State, 5 or more wins. Ohio State averages under 50 points per game. Ohio State allows under 70 points per game. Illinois has a win percentage over 70%. This system says to fade Ohio State. Not only, again, is this record 7-29, 19.4% against the spread, those favorites in that role like Ohio State are only 17-20 straight up. That is only 46% against the spread. So again, bad rush defense, system 1. Ranked versus ranked lines between the 9s at home, system 2. Conference home dogs on a win streak, system 3. And fade that favorite under 50 points per game on offense, under 17 points per game on defense, with the opponent having a win percentage over 70%. Hit that like button, grab my weekend warrior, college football Saturday, big 5% on Sunday NFL. Enjoy this weekend of football.